the devil in red. Mrs. Diem used her hand to slap Mr. Cam's mouth and shouted loudly. "Open your mouth, I told you to open your mouth so I can feed you porridge." But Mr. Cam shook his head and waved his hands. He clasped his hands and begged. Mrs. Diem still did not forgive him, glaring at him and saying, "If you don't open your mouth and eat properly, don't blame me for pouring this whole bowl of porridge on your head." Mrs. Cam's eyes filled with tears. "I said I can't eat it. Leave it there and I'll eat it myself later." Mrs. Diem placed the bowl of porridge on a nearby table with a bang. She said angrily, "You are my debt. Why don't you just die?" Old Cam cried. She tried to hold the bowl of porridge to her mouth to sip some water. However, the porridge seemed too fishy, she couldn't eat it. She turned her face away, put the bowl of porridge down on the table and sobbed. But her tears gradually softened, because Mrs. Diem was still staring at her. She glanced back at the porridge. The porridge was fishy and smelled of slightly spoiled pork. Mrs. Diem must have bought spoiled meat, which she couldn't eat, so she cooked porridge for her to eat. He thought for a while and then vomited on the ground. Mrs. Diem roared. "Oh my God! I couldn't eat and even threw up. How miserable I am. How stupid are you? Stupid as a pig." Then she rushed forward, grabbed Mr. Cam's head, used her hand to cover his mouth and poured the bowl of porridge into his mouth. While pouring, she shouted, "Here, eat. Eat quickly or I'll kill you." As the bowl of porridge flowed, the fishy smell rose up, making Mr. Cam struggle. The porridge water splashed onto Mrs. Diem's hand. She became even angrier, poking Mr. Cam's mouth with an iron spoon, trying to force him to eat quickly. After pouring the bowl of porridge, Mr. Cam fainted and stopped vomiting. The Queen clothes. Mrs. Diem glared at Mr. Cam and went to the water jar to wash his hands. Then she put him on the bed. The porridge water was scattered everywhere, making the room smelly, and she didn't bother to clean it up. For a long time, Mr. Cam's room had always smelled musty, like a toilet. That smell even permeated his clothes, hair, and face. There was no place that didn't smell. That smell made Mrs. Diem treat Mr. Cam like a sick cat, so she disliked him even more, so she was lazy to take care of him. Since Mr. Ko died, no one could control Mrs. Diem. When he was alive, Mr. Ko was strong and had a violent temper, so he often beat her to cure her bad temper. Now that Mr. Ko is gone, no one can control her. After Mrs. Diem left, a few hours later, Mr. Cam woke up. The sticky rice porridge was on his mouth. He tried to get up, waving his hand to chase away the flies that landed on his face, near the pool of rotten rice porridge. He groped for the water jar to wash his hands. But when he turned on the tap, there was not a drop of water. It must have been time for the water plant to cut off. This afternoon, I don't know what Mrs. Diem did that she forgot to turn on the valve, so now there was not a drop of water in the tank. The dirty, rancid porridge water smelled even worse after a few hours of him fainting. Even though he was used to the smell on his body, he could not stand it. He remembered that the old well in the backyard was still there. When Mr. Ko was still alive, this family used to use well water. Only in recent years did they switch to tap water. Mr. Cam crept out to the backyard, lowered the bucket of water into the well to get water to wash up. Duan took the bicycle, parked it temporarily at the fence, then carried the bag of rice he had just bought at the district market from the bike into the house. In the damp kitchen, a few ashes were floating on the stovetop and falling down. Duan kicked the pillar several times to get rid of the dust. Then he hid the bag of rice in the corner of the kitchen. Today, Duan only dared to buy a dozen kilos of rice, because he was afraid that Mrs. Diem would accidentally find this amount of rice and bring it to Mr. Luke's house for Ba. Ba was Mrs. Diem's illegitimate child with Mr. Luke. Mrs. Diem had an affair with Mr. Luke and became pregnant with Ba when Mr. Ko was still alive. At that time, Mr. Ko went away to work for 3 years. When she returned, Mrs. Diem hid the fact that she had an affair and had a child with another man. At the end of her life, the whole story was gossiped about by the villagers and came to light. Mr. Ko was so angry that he foamed at the mouth and died. Duan ran out to the water tank to wash his face when he suddenly realized that the water in the tank was gone. Duan opened the emergency water valve at the head of the canal, letting water flow into the tank. Usually when Duan was away from home, Mrs. DM did not pay attention to the water. Whenever water was released from the pumping station and no one was home, clean water overflowed into the tank, which was a waste. Therefore, before leaving the house, Duan usually turned off the main water valve. Only when he returned home and saw that there was no more water did he turn it on. While waiting for the water to fill the tank so he could bathe, Duan ran into the inner room to ask about his grandmother. The door was ajar, and a rancid, fishy smell wafted out. Duan wrinkled his nose a little but pushed the door open. As soon as he pushed the door open, Duan saw Mrs. Kam sitting there, chewing betel. She smiled at him and asked, "Your nephew comes home early today?" Duan opened his mouth and smiled from ear to ear. Today, his grandfather was unusually healthy. It had been a long time since Duan had seen Grandfather DM chewing betel. Duan sat down next to Grandfather DM, made himself a piece and stuffed it into his mouth. While chewing, he frowned and asked Grandfather Kam, "What's so good about this that I see you keep chewing it? It's so spicy I could die." Old Kam just smiled and said nothing. Duan spat the betel nut into the chamber pot near his bed, then wiped his mouth with his hand, then ran out to the water jar to take a bath. Just when Mrs. DM came back, she saw Duan's red lips and glared at him. "Oh my God, I just had sex with someone in the field." She paused for a moment, then lifted her chin and asked, "Did you bring me some rice? How much?" Duan bowed his head and said nothing, just ran to the water jar, poured cold water on his head and started scrubbing. When Mrs. DM saw that Duan did not speak, she angrily rushed into the kitchen. But she could not find the rice. Duan must have hidden it too well today. Her face darkened with discomfort. Anticipating that something bad was about to happen, Duan quickly changed into his shorts, intending to run out and hang around until Mrs. DM calmed down before returning. Unexpectedly, Duan had just finished changing his pants when Mrs. DM, holding a mulberry whip, rushed at Duan and whipped him repeatedly. Duan fell face down on the ground, his face covered in blood because his cheek had been scraped against a broken tile. Duan was covered in mud all over his body. Mrs. DM hissed, "I told you to buy 2 kilos of rice so I could bring it over to take care of your younger brother, but why didn't you listen to me? Do you think my words are empty?" Duan gritted his teeth and did not say anything. It was not because he was afraid of Mrs. DM that he did not dare to argue back. It was because he was afraid of the filial piety hanging over his head. Mrs. DM took advantage of the situation to grab Duan's hair, pull his ears, and slapped him in the face, saying, "Your sister is still in school age. If you don't take care of her, who will support this family in the future? You've been stupid all your life. Do you want your sister to be stupid like you, to suffer as a servant like you?" Duan kept his head down and remained silent. After a while, Mrs. DM had to turn around and go back into the house. She did not forget to leave behind a lingering sentence. "If you disobey me this time, there will be no next time, you hear me? If there is a next time, I won't just beat you up like this." She went into the house, was silent for a moment, then shouted out, "I'll go to Mrs. Han later and take 20 kilos of rice on credit. When you get your salary, bring the money over there to pay." It turned out that Mrs. DM had thought of a way to get the rice that Duan refused to buy. If he had known this earlier, Duan would have bought 2 pounds of rice for her, to avoid a painful beating. Duan was very upset but didn't know what to do. He ran to the water jar and poured several buckets of cold water on his head to vent his anger, also to wash away all the mud stuck to his body. Mrs. DM went somewhere that evening and returned happily at midnight. Seeing Duan sitting in front of a basin of water, wiping the tear on his face, she said gently, "Rub salt on it, or it will get infected and break open, costing you money to treat it." Duan found it strange that Mrs. DM suddenly changed her attitude of caring for him like that, but her next words made his heart numb. "Mr. Luke and I are getting married soon, and Ba will also move in together. When he comes back tomorrow, don't bother him with his studies, okay? Having said that, she turned around and walked into the room with a smile. She seemed very happy because her long-cherished wish had finally come true. This afternoon, passing by the village temple, Duan heard rumors that Mr. Luke had sold his house because he lost money in the lottery. That was probably why Mr. Luke had no choice but to marry Ms. DM. Moreover, Ms. DM had always been there to take care of his food and accommodation, and Mr. Luke had long relied on her, so he didn't bother to do anything but drink all day. Now that Mr. Luke was down on his luck, Ms. DM must have pumped him to come back here. Duan was so angry that the blood that had already flowed from his cheek suddenly flowed out again. His eyebrows twitched, his fists pressed against the ground until their veins stood out. Mrs. DM was becoming more and more outrageous. If Mr. Luke returned, the burden of feeding 5 mouths would fall on his head. The entire legacy that Mr. Ko had left behind during his lifetime, no one knew how long it would last. Mrs. DM kept wandering around in the room, wondering what she was doing that made the whole house so noisy. After a while, she ran out and deliberately grumbled so that Duan could hear. The wedding is coming soon, but I have nothing to wear on my wedding night. Her face turned red with embarrassment when she thought of Mr. Luke. She was over 40 this year, the age of youthfulness. Mr. Luke's strong and plump figure made her feel even more burning. Her face suddenly looked like she remembered something. She ran into Mr. Kam's room and started to scold him. "Where is your red dress? Give it here so I can wear it to prepare for the wedding tomorrow." Duan was so angry that his face turned purple that he rushed into Mr. Kam's room, intending to stop Mrs. DM. However, it was too late. Mrs. DM had stripped off the red shirt Mr. Kam had been wearing for the past few days, leaving him completely naked. Duan shouted loudly. "What are you doing, Mom? Why are you taking off Grandma's shirt?" Mrs. DM glared and slapped Duan, then said, "Shut up. Or do you have money to buy me a shirt? A poor, ignorant person like you wants to care for others? Worry about keeping yourself warm." After taking off the red shirt of Old Man Kam, she frowned a bit because the shirt had a bad smell. But she quickly smiled and took the shirt out to the water vat to wash it clean. Duan saw Old Man Kam naked. She was not crying or sad but still smiling toothlessly, chewing betel. Suddenly tears flowed. Maybe she was too old and lost her mind. Or maybe she had been tortured by Mrs. DM to the point of insanity. He rummaged through the closet, took an old shirt and put it on her, then said, "Put on your coat or you will catch a cold. When I have money tomorrow, I will buy you another coat." Hearing that, Mrs. DM shouted shrilly from outside. "He has plenty of clothes to wear that you have to buy. That money is for Ba's education. I forbid you to touch it." Duan was so angry that he punched the wall, causing dust to fall from the wall. Duan was so upset that he felt it was hard to breathe. So he went out, got on his bicycle and rode out to the communal house. Mrs. DM saw Duan driving away and called out, "Tomorrow we are preparing a feast, you have to come home early to help. Don't hang around anywhere." Duan ignored Mrs. DM's words. She could beat, scold, and torture him. But bringing Mr. Luke into this house was one of the taboos. Duan would absolutely not tolerate her actions. If Mr. Luke were here tomorrow and indeed married Mrs. DM, he would drag Ba out and beat him up to vent his anger. Today, outside the communal house, there was a performance rehearsal for the village performance team. The performance team had a girl that Duan really liked and had noticed for a long time. That girl was Trang. Although Trang was not beautiful, she was very charming. Trang's charm lay in her eyelashes, willow leaf eyelashes that drooped down to the corners of her eyes. Although her eyelashes looked sad, they made people secretly feel pity for her. There were also some guys in the art troupe who were interested in Trang. But those guys were all notorious playboys. Among them, Song was the person Duan hated the most. Previously, Song had a bad reputation in the district art troupe for his womanizing, and later, because of his excessive womanizing, he was kicked out of the village by the district. The village was short of people, so he invited Song to practice art and teach the younger ones. Since joining the village art troupe, Song had tried to flirt with Trang many times but failed. Duan often hung around to talk to Trang, so every time he saw Duan appear, Song would call out to the guys in the art troupe to beat him up. Trang knew that Song was not a good person, so she often tried to stay away from him. Seeing this, Song thought that Trang was ignoring him because of Duan. He was furious and beat Duan very badly every time. As soon as Duan cycled to the entrance of the communal house, he heard the loud sound of drums and gongs. The young men in the art troupe were performing the play Quan Amt Kin. When they saw Duan coming, they threw off their hats and coats and rushed to the communal house gate to block Duan's bicycle. The public shouted loudly, "What are you doing here? Are you trying to tease a good girl? Hit her." As soon as Song finished speaking, he rushed forward and punched Duan in the face. The young men took advantage of the situation and continued to add more punches. One elbow, another punch, and in no time Duan was dizzy. The village chief hurriedly ran over and shouted, "What are you guys doing? Everyone was tired from practicing the art show, but now you have the energy to fight so hard?" Seeing the village chief appear, the group of workers stopped and said with a big smile, "We thought it was some guys from the next village, so we beat them up." Who would have thought? Song helped Duan up and said in a calm voice, "Is that Duan? Damn. Why didn't you say anything to let us know? Who would leave it like that?" The village chief, with his eyes half closed, thought the young men were right. Around here, several villages were fighting with each other. Occasionally, young men from other villages would come over to cause trouble and get beaten up by the men of this village. The village chief didn't think it was strange that the Tsong used that as an excuse to beat Duan. He ran over and patted Duan on the shoulder, then said with a smile, "Young man, in the past, when bombs and bullets fell everywhere, he was fine. Is everything okay?" Duan forced a smile, brushing off the dust on his clothes that had gotten dirty from the beating he received from the Tsong gang. Duan glanced inside and saw Trang still practicing some lines, so he asked the village chief, "How is our performance team practicing? Is it time for a break?" The village chief suddenly puffed out his chest and said seriously, "What do you mean by a break? The village festival is in a few days and I haven't even finished half of the play yet." Then he lectured the young people. "It's because you guys are lazy, otherwise it would have been finished a long time ago." Duan regretfully walked away with his bike. He turned his head back to look at Trang before leaving. Just as Trang turned her head and saw Duan, she happily ran over. "Mr. Duan, how long have you been here?" Song was afraid that Trang would cling to Duan, so he darkened his face and said, "It's very late, hurry up and practice so we can go home." "Trang, come here with me." Trang hesitated as if she didn't want to go. She whispered to Duan, "After practice, I'll go to the communal house temple. See you there." Trang slipped a small piece of paper into Duan's hand. Duan quickly put it in his pocket, blushed, got on his bike and sped home. When Trang saw Duan had gone, she bowed her head and shyly walked into the temple. When Duan returned home, the lights were off. Perhaps Mrs. DM had gone to sleep. Looking into Mrs. Cam's room, Duan saw that she was still awake. The flickering hurricane lamp at the head of her bed had never gone out because her room was hidden in a dark corner all year round. Duan saw Mrs. Cam naked. The shirt he had put on her earlier had disappeared somewhere. He chose another shirt from the closet, put it on the old man and asked, "Why don't you put on a shirt and just go shirtless like that? You'll catch a cold." "Where's the shirt I gave you earlier?" Mr. Cam kept smiling, then suddenly said, "Give me back the red shirt, son. I only wear red shirts." What Mr. Cam said was like a cold wind blowing through Duan. Duan suddenly felt a shiver, but also tears welled up. Duan gently flattered the old man. "Tomorrow I will buy you a new, more beautiful and expensive red shirt, okay?" Duan mentioned the red shirt, deliberately speaking loudly to see if Mrs. DM would wake up and start cursing. But there was no response. Mrs. DM must have been in a deep sleep. Duan held the old man's hand and talked with him while waiting for the long night to pass until it was time to go to the communal house to meet Trang. Duan talked to Old Man Cam as if he was talking to himself. As for Old Man Cam, he kept chewing betel. A red liquid kept flowing from his mouth. Every now and then Duan had to use a handkerchief to wipe his mouth to clean it. Smelling the strong smell of betel juice, Duan said, "Tomorrow I will go to the back garden to cut a new bunch of areca nuts for you. This areca nut has been left for too long and it smells fishy." Estimated time Trang finished practicing performing arts, Duan excitedly stood up to greet Mr. Cam. "I have to go. Go to bed early or you'll be tired." Having said that, Duan went out, closed the door and bolted it to keep the wind out of the old man's room. Then he took his bicycle and went to the village's temple to meet Trang. Inside the room, Mr. Cam suddenly stood up and opened the door a crack to look at Duan's figure. He stopped laughing. Suddenly the red slime in his mouth fell out. Alas, that was not the betel nut he usually chewed. But unexpectedly it was an eye that had been chewed to pieces with a long line of flesh and blood stuck to it. As if he had just dropped a treasure, Mr. Cam hurriedly rushed over to pick up the eye, stuffed it in his mouth and chewed it greedily as if he was afraid someone would fight over it. He sat down on the edge of the bed and laughed absent-mindedly like before. The room returned to silence, only the crackling sound coming from his mouth remained. Duan rode his bike to the end of the village road and saw Trang looming at the gate of the village shrine. But Duan was not happy because he discovered that not only Trang was there but Tsung was also there. He saw Tsung aggressively rubbing against Trang. He quickly rode his bike to the front of the shrine. He threw the bike aside and rushed into the shrine. Tsung was grinning widely when he saw Duan charging towards him fiercely, and his face turned pale. At this moment, there was no other young man around Tsung to rely on. Normally, Tsung would bully Duan just because he relied on the crowd. Now, alone and helpless, Tsung's strength was not as good as Duan's. Because Duan was tall, big, and muscular, his body was full of calluses, and his shoulders were stubby and muscular. Tsung was just a weak, small artist who practiced opera all day, so he was no match for him. Seeing Duan getting mad, Trang tried to resist him, so Tsung immediately said something to ease the embarrassment. "Is Mr. Duan going to the temple to play?" "I just finished explaining the play to Trang, so I'm going home." Seeing Trang scared and with tears in her eyes, Duan punched Tsung in the face. "Change this." Tsung coughed up blood and fell to the ground. He quickly covered his mouth and ran away. As he walked, he kept saying, "You bastard. Remember my face." Seeing Tsung had run away, Duan breathed a sigh of relief and then approached Trang, stammering, "Are you okay?" Trang blushed and bowed her head without saying anything. She sat down at the base of an old tree near the temple, waving for Duan to come sit next to her. Duan shyly approached, but still sat a distance away from Trang. The two did not say a word to each other. Duan was sweating with fear because he thought he had done something wrong to make Trang angry. He was about to speak when Trang immediately raised her voice. "Have you read the paper I gave you?" Suddenly remembering the piece of paper in his breast pocket, he quickly reached into his pocket, scratched his head and was about to open it to read when Trang grabbed it and said, "Don't read it, I'm shy." Trang's voice was gentle, Duan's whole body was numb. After a while, he stammered to explain. "When I got home I was so excited, I intended to save it here to read. But I completely forgot." Trang pushed Duan lightly and said, "Why are you such a big man but such a coward? You were yelling so loudly just now." Duan scratched his head and ears, stammering, You. Seeing Duan's weak voice, Trang was delighted and smiled brightly. She stuffed the piece of paper back into Duan's hand and said, "Here, read it, but don't tell anyone, understand?" Trang finished speaking, Duan quickly took the piece of paper, straining his eyes to read the words under the moonlight. Unexpectedly, before he could read a single sentence, a shout suddenly rang out from all around. "Oh my God, it's murder! It's murder! Catch the murderer!" Duan stood up abruptly, quickly stuffed the piece of paper into his pocket, then pulled Trang's hand and said, "Let me take you home, then I'll run out and check. It's dangerous for you to be here alone at this hour." Trang listened to Duan and climbed into the car, intending to let Duan take her home. But as soon as they reached the temple gate, a group of men, women, old and young, all carrying torches were running towards them from the village road. Leading the way was Tsong, who was agitating and shouting to the villagers. As soon as Tsong saw Duan driving out of the temple gate, he pointed straight at Duan's face and shouted, "He is the murderer, the murderer. The ungrateful type." The villagers rolled their eyes and rushed forward, pulling Duan off the bike and pinning him to the ground. I don't know how many people rushed in and beat Duan up. Duan held his sore mouth and urged, "Beat him to death, you disloyal and unfilial son of a bitch." Trang saw Duan being beaten by the villagers for no reason, so she rushed out to stop him and said, "Everyone stop, Mr. Duan did not commit any crime that you all beat him like that." Sung ran to pull Trang towards him and said as if giving an order, "Stay away from him, he's a murderer. Don't stand next to him, it's dangerous." Trang jerked her hand away from Tsong and then angrily pointed at Tsong's face and said, "You are the one who puts fire in someone else's hand. You were beaten by Mr. Duan, so you wrongly accused him, right? Why are you so evil?" The situation became chaotic. Duan was beaten by the villagers, not knowing whether he would live or die. It was only after a while that the village chief led the militia to stop everyone from beating Duan. But in the end, Duan's fate remained the same. He was tied up by the militia and dragged to the village headquarters. When Duan escaped from being beaten by the villagers, it was the militia's turn to angrily question him. "If you confess honestly and quickly, you will be given leniency. Otherwise, you will be convicted of a serious crime and get shot 10 times. Duan stammered, "Yes sir, you must be mistaken. I didn't kill anyone." The militiaman slapped the table and said, "You've come this far and you're still denying it?" Duan was still bewildered and did not understand why he was suddenly beaten to death by the villagers. He was still in a difficult situation when he reached the village headquarters and was forced to open his mouth to be interrogated like this. It was only a while later that Duan realized what had happened. Mrs. Diem was dead. His biological mother, who had always been so vicious towards Duan like an animal, was dead. And obviously, Mrs. Diem's bad reputation was well known throughout the village and alleys. Now that she had died so miserably, Duan was definitely the #1 suspect. Without Song needing to provoke him, all the crimes were already placed on Duan's head. Diem died in her bedroom, strangled. Not only that, her eyes were gouged out, revealing deep black eye sockets. At the scene, people saw scattered furniture and signs of her struggle. So someone must have killed her, not committed suicide. The motive for the crime in the village was none other than Duan. Not only that, Mrs. Diem's nagging was also dug up by some villagers to convict Duan. "I heard. When Mr. Ko was still alive, he had an affair with a distant cousin and was discovered by Mrs. Diem. At that time, Mrs. Diem was pregnant with Duan. Since Duan was born, Mrs. Diem remembered that incident and hated him very much. This Diem also wanted to take revenge on Mr. Ko, so she slept with Mr. Luke and gave birth to Ba. That made Mr. Ko so angry that he vomited blood and died. Since the day Mr. Ko died, she began to torture Duan even more viciously. When the water is too high, the bank will break. No wonder he hanged himself and killed his mother. But gouging out his eyes is too cruel and immoral. After all, she is my biological mother, and yet. Who told Mr. Ko to beat Mrs. Diem so much when he was alive, so that when she died, Mrs. Diem would torture Duan? It's all just because of family matters that they kill each other. Isn't that miserable?" The villagers said those words reached Duan's ears. It made him realize why people insisted that he was the murderer. The village chief knocked on the table for Duan to concentrate and said, "I heard your mother was planning to bring Mr. Luke and his illegitimate son, Ba, home. Was this the reason why you got angry and killed her?" Duan shook his head and said, "Yes sir, I do have one. The village chief slapped the table and shouted. Where were you when the murder happened? What evidence do you have to deny the crime? Duan was so angry that he cried and said, Yes, I'm going to the village temple. You were the one who caught me out there. As soon as Duan finished speaking, Song suddenly rushed in from the crowd of villagers outside the headquarters and shouted. That guy is lying, uncle. He went to the temple last night and then came home and killed his mother. Then, still not over his madness, he ran to the temple and beat me up, still swearing. If not him, then who? As he spoke, Song pointed to the swollen corner of his mouth, showing the obvious evidence of Duan's brutality. He didn't know how to take revenge. What happened gave him the opportunity to vent all his anger on Duan. He was determined to use this obvious evidence to force Duan to admit to the murder before he would be satisfied. Duan was both laughing and crying. Because of his one punch, Song now used it as evidence to convict him. Some villagers, after hearing this, even more believed that Song's argument was correct, that after Duan killed Mrs. DM, he still had not run out of murderous blood, so he went to the communal house to beat Song so hard that his mouth was torn open. The surrounding people were talking loudly. Someone picked up a rock and threw it at Duan, cursing. You are an immoral man, and you still deny your crime. I will kill you. The stone was like a huge thing thrown into the calm river, causing the water to churn and boil. The villagers rushed into the village headquarters and assaulted Duan. The situation was so chaotic that the village chief was crushed, face down on the ground. The village chief shouted in fear. Where are the village militia? Quickly protect the murderer and escort him to the commune headquarters or the villagers will beat him to death. Luckily, Duan's body was strong and sturdy, but no matter how hard he was hit, it was ineffective. Despite the numerous elbows aimed at his face, Duan remained calm, only slightly stunned for a moment before being dragged away by the militia. Duan was arrested. Song stayed next to Trang to add. This guy killed his mother and gouged out her eyes. His crime was extreme. Whoever was unlucky enough to marry him would have lost their entire life. Trang was absent-minded, treating Song's words like a hornet buzzing in her ears. She sympathized with Duan's fate of having a mother with a cruel personality. She also sympathized with him for falling into such a miserable situation. Trang's father, Han, heard the news and was told by Song that Trang had feelings for Duan, so he was very angry and forbade Trang from ever seeing Duan again. Otherwise, he would disown her and not consider her as his daughter. Duan was locked up at the commune headquarters for a day, then taken to the district police station for investigation. No one knows what happened next, but after DM's funeral, Duan was released. The village chief set up a loudspeaker at the front of the communal house to announce that the investigation concluded that Duan had not committed any crime. Everyone, pay attention, the district police have clear investigation results. The real murderer who killed Ms. DM has not been identified yet. But the police investigation has confirmed that Mr. Duan is not the murderer. Therefore, the government hopes that people will not have unfounded suspicions that will affect Mr. Duan's life. When the news was released, the villagers quieted down. Instead of hating Duan, people started to sympathize with him. Some were happy for Duan because he had escaped from his cruel mother. It was thought that Duan's life would be freed and he would turn a new page. But unexpectedly, the days that followed were a deep muddy pit, making his life darker and darker. The death of Mrs. DM has become a huge mystery, a topic of discussion. Who killed her? She was cruel but only towards Duan, but with the people around her she was also quite friendly and enthusiastic. The fact that the killer has not been identified makes many people very uneasy. That person is still at large and has not been caught. Will he kill another person, and who will that victim be? People feel scared because danger lurks all around. Anyone can become the prey of a killer. Since returning from town, Duan passed by the village temple. He saw Trang still practicing her art. Trang's eyes looked at Duan strangely. Perhaps after the incident the day before, Trang had encountered some incident. Heard that Mr. Han forbade her from seeing him. Suddenly remembering that he had not had time to read the piece of paper, Duan quickly opened it and read it. After reading the lines on the piece of paper, Duan's eyes were filled with tears. Trang had confessed her love to him, but the incident had separated the two of them. Trang glanced at Duan, then quickly turned away. Song saw Duan and intentionally interrupted, leading the young men to cause trouble. "What are you doing here? Get lost. There's no room for you to look." Duan bowed his head in disappointment and sadness. He was sad not because Song's group caused trouble, but because Trang's feelings seemed to have changed. But he did not know that Trang's feelings had not actually diminished at all. Perhaps it was only because of Mr. Han's prohibition that forced her to ignore Duan in front of everyone. She planned to go find Duan after the performance and explain. When Duan got home, he saw Mr. Luke leading Ba over. Carrying a bag of luggage, he sat down outside the gate. Mr. Luke sat chewing grass, while Ba's face was haggard. Duan was surprised and angry and asked, "Why are you here?" Mr. Luke smiled and said, "My house is chained by the creditor. Now I'm going back to my wife's house." "Are you going to forbid me?" Duan pointed out into the field and said, "You go live in the fields. Which house is your wife's house?" "Nonsense." Mr. Luke stood up straight, his muscular back extended and rushed towards Duan, threatening. "DM and I were about to get married when she unfortunately died. She was half my wife. And my child and her child are sitting here. My child must go back to her mother's house." Mr. Luke pointed at Ba and spoke harshly. "This man's house." Duan suddenly opened his eyes wide and punched Mr. Luke straight in the face. Seeing the fight, the neighbors started to peek over to see what was going on. Mr. Luke knew there was movement. Seeing that Duan was still angry, he got in the water. "I saw you just got back from the camp, so I didn't mess with you. I'll come over tomorrow. If you don't let me in, don't blame me." After saying that, Mr. Luke pulled Ba away. Ba exclaimed in surprise, "Dad, why don't we go inside?" Mr. Luke grumbled, "Ask your crazy brother." Then Mr. Luke and his son disappeared. Duan tiredly pushed the gate open to the yard. Suddenly remembering Mrs. DM, he ran to her room first to ask after her. But when he opened the door, Mrs. DM was nowhere to be seen. She had gone somewhere. Duan suddenly thought that he had been out of the house for a few days. Perhaps his aunt or uncle had heard the news and had taken Mrs. Kem home for a few days to take care of her. He sat down on the bed and fell asleep. He didn't know when it had gotten dark. Duan woke up feeling sad and had no interest in cooking. He thought of Trang, his whole body was sad and he covered his face and cried. The reverse monkey won. Duan slammed his fist down on the bed and growled, cursing Song to vent his anger. "Song, you and I have no grudge, but you insist on making things difficult for me." Trang. Duan was covering his face and crying when suddenly he felt a hand patting his back and asking, "Why is your grandson crying like this?" Duan raised his head and saw Mr. Kam. He was chewing betel and smiling gently. Duan quickly wiped away the tears on his cheeks. He spoke in a covert manner. "There's some dust in my eye, I'm not crying. Have you had dinner yet?" The old lady just nodded and then sat down again, smiling absent-mindedly. Duan thought that the old man was confused and did not know whether he had eaten or not. He still ran down to the kitchen and brought him food and water as usual. Usually Mrs. DM forced Mrs. Kam to eat, but she refused to eat. But the food was cooked and brought up by her nephew. Every meal, she ate. Sometimes she even ate 2 bowls and drank a sip of soup. It was not that she could not eat. It was just that Mrs. DM had mistreated her too much. Duan thought about Mr. Luke, then thought about Ba. He sighed. Well, Mr. Luke was a bad person, but Ba was known to be obedient and studious. After all, he was Duan's half-brother. Thinking about Ba's future fate, if he followed Mr. Luke, he would probably become nothing. He then told Mr. Kam. In a few days, Mr. Luke and Ba will probably come here to stay. We have to give them a room inside, sir. Mr. Kam suddenly asked. Do you like living with them? Duan honestly replied. When my mother was still alive, she wanted to marry Mr. Luke. I was so angry. I hated him too, but now he is so miserable, and Ba is also my younger brother. It won't work if we don't let them stay, sir. Uncle Cam chewed betel and said. Don't let them stay. The old man only said one sentence like that and then fell silent. Duan did not understand what he meant. After finishing the meal, Duan cleared the dishes and brought them down. Old man Cam's eyes followed his grandson's back and then showed a vicious look. When the ivory-white moonlight hung above the bamboo, the chirping of the frogs gradually stopped. The art troupe scattered and each went their separate ways back home. Song saw Trang walking alone and wanted to flirt with her. But suddenly a pair of very heavy hands pinned Song down and dragged him into the bushes. He did not see the person behind him, but he had the feeling that although the person was thin, she was very strong. He shouted. Who is it? Who is dragging me? But there was no sound of kicking back, the other hand disappeared. He stood up in confusion but saw no one. Looking towards the end of the village road, Trang had gradually disappeared at the end of the field. Perhaps Song wanted to chase after her but couldn't catch up. He stomped his feet and cursed before leaving, still feeling confused. At the entrance of the village, Trang had just cycled past Mrs. Han's tea shop. Mr. Luke was lying cross-legged on a hammock, sighing as he looked out at the village road. He saw her passing by. He immediately jumped up and ran out to block the road. Trang was surprised when she saw Mr. Luke blocking her way and asked, Uncle Luke, what are you doing? Mr. Luke opened his eyes and said, Tell Duan, if you don't let my father and I stay, then every time you come here, you won't be able to handle it with me. Old Luke was afraid that his attempt to threaten Duan would not work, so when he heard that Duan and Trang had feelings for each other, he immediately wanted to use Trang as bait to scare Duan. He threatened for a while then let Trang go. Trang was breathing heavily in fear and did not dare to stay long. She suddenly remembered that she had to go see Duan to explain, and took the opportunity to tell him about the matter of old Luke causing trouble with her. From the beginning of the village road, turn left through a cemetery, then past a duckweed pond to reach Duan's house. Trang's house is in the opposite direction from Duan's house. This village has 3 roads connecting to each other. The convergence of the 3 village roads is where Mrs. Han's tea shop is. When arriving at Duan's house, suddenly an owl swooped down from somewhere. It landed in front of Duan's house. It stared at Trang, not making a sound or moving. It seemed like it wanted to guard this house, not to cause trouble. Another black shadow flew by, and another owl appeared. In its claws was a very large rat, the size of a cat. The rat squealed loudly like a pig. Its squealing made Trang's legs go weak. Suddenly, the owl swooped into Mrs. Cam's room and threw the rat in there. The rat's squealing immediately stopped. The owl staggered and flew out in fear, landed next to the fence, and looked at Trang curiously. Trang shook her head for a moment, then cleared her mind of the image she had just seen. She raised her voice and exclaimed, Mr. Duan. Mr. Duan. Are you home? This is Trang. Trang called twice, the door opened, the lights turned on. Duan rushed out of the house like a rocket. Seeing Trang parked the car outside the gate, Duan said, Trang? Why are you here at this hour? Paige pouting. You still ask me that question? Are you going to invite me for a drink? Duan woke up, hurriedly opened the gate and invited Trang into the house. Trang led her bicycle into the yard, put the bike on the stand, then walked over to the bamboo stall and lit a pot of tea as naturally as if it were her own home. While making tea, Trang said, Just now I saw an owl carrying a big rat. It grabbed it and threw it into my grandmother's room. Hurry up and go in and see, or the rat will destroy everything in there. After hearing that, Duan panicked and ran into Mr. Cam's room to check. But it seemed like he was asleep, his back was turned to the wall and his breathing was gentle. Trang also looked in to see, seeing that nothing was wrong, she breathed a sigh of relief and said, That mouse must have run outside. I was so scared when I saw the owl it threw at me. I was worried that something would happen to him. Even looking at that rat scared me to death. Seeing Duan absent-minded, his eyes still filled with sadness, Trang immediately pinched Duan's arm, making him scream in pain. Whose pain? Why did you pinch my hand? Trang rolled her eyes and said. Why did you look at me last night and then leave? Did you misunderstand me again? Duan smiled happily and asked. So you were teasing me, I thought. Trang pulled Duan's hand to signal silence so that Mr. Kam could continue sleeping. She said absent-mindedly. My dad doesn't want me to see you, so in crowded places I have to pretend not to notice. Trang suddenly changed the subject to ask about Mr. Kam. But you seem to like wearing red, don't you? Every night I cycle past here I see you wearing red. Do you often cycle here? Duan asked in surprise. Trang nodded. From the day you were taken to the district, I brought food over every day. But that only lasted for 2 days. Because every time I brought food over, she didn't eat it. The rice was rotten from the night before and hadn't been touched. So from the next day on, I didn't bring it over anymore, because I thought someone else had brought food for her. After that, whenever I had free time, I just went over to see how she was doing. Duan suddenly choked with tears because Trang was so nice to him. Trang saw Duan staring at her and blushed slightly. In the quiet space, the two gradually moved closer to each other. Duan gingerly held Trang's hand. Trang pretended not to know what was going on and let Duan do it. Both of their faces were red, the shy atmosphere enveloped them both, making them silent. Suddenly Trang remembered that it was late and she could not stay too long. She interrupted to remind Duan. Just now I was passing by the village entrance. Mr. Luke blocked my way and threatened me. He said if you don't let him in, he will cause trouble. It sounds like Mr. Luke wants to cause trouble, you have to be careful. From tomorrow on, I will take the back road to avoid Ms. Han's tea shop. I won't see Mr. Luke anymore. Hearing that, Duan's face turned pale with anger. Trang felt Duan's hand tighten, even clutching hers. She cried out. You hold my hand so painfully. Duan quickly let go of his hand, stammering. I'm sorry. I'm so angry with Mr. Luke. Trang bowed her head and said. It's late, I have to go home. Or my dad will scold me. Trang led the bike out of the gate and was out of sight. Duan sighed and went inside the house to turn off the lights and go to sleep. Before going to sleep, Duan had to check on Mrs. Kam's room to see if she was okay. The night returned to silence. Mr. Kam turned to lie on his side facing the door. In his mouth, the rat was still struggling, it was still alive. Only that Mr. Kam had bitten it so hard on the throat that it could not make a sound. At the village entrance, old Luke was fanning himself with a palm leaf fan. Suddenly, he raised his hand to cover his neck and cried out. At this hour, Mrs. Han had returned home. At the tea shop at the beginning of the village, only old Luke and his son remained. The tea shop had been borrowed by old Luke from Mrs. Han to temporarily stay overnight. Boss saw old Luke struggling, so he shook his arm and asked. Dad. What's wrong? Mr. Luke tried to say each word. I don't know why, it feels like someone is stabbing a knife into my neck. My head feels like it's going to explode, my neck feels like it's going to cut me off. As soon as Lao Luke finished speaking, unexpectedly, his head immediately fell to the ground. Blood sprayed from his neck into the sky. Ba screamed in terror and fainted. Lao Luke died before him, a very terrifying death. Something had crushed his neck so hard that he couldn't react in time and died on the spot. In Mr. Kam's room, the rat's head fell to the ground. Mr. Kam's cold eyes looked into the distance, as if trying to see through the wooden door. Blood was splattered everywhere on the ground, and the stench was strong. The rat's intestines were hanging out. In the strangely quiet space, Ba's scream was like a heart-chilling sound. It made people shiver and wake up. Someone lit a torch and ran towards the direction of the scream. When they discovered that old Luke's head and body were in different directions, their limbs went limp. More and more people appeared and gathered. They had to temporarily use a piece of thin mat to cover old Luke's body and head to avoid being shocked. Ba was lifted under the armpits to lie on the bed and then his philtrum was pressed. After massaging that point for a while, Ba woke up. He had tears in his eyes and begged the villagers like a madman. "Uncles, please save my dad, please save my dad." It sounded like Ba was panicking, talking non-stop. People tried to persuade him but to no avail. He kept muttering that his father's head had suddenly been severed. His father cried out in pain and then his head fell off. At first, no one believed it, but then someone had the courage to open the mat and look at the marks on Mr. Luke's neck, and then they believed that what Ba said was true. This village had been peaceful for a long time, and it wasn't in the middle of nowhere, so there couldn't be wild animals. But Mr. Luke's neck had been torn apart as if something had torn it off. It was like when someone bit off a piece of flesh and tore it apart. A machete couldn't have made such a terrible mark. Everyone was talking, and someone who had heard strange stories from all over told them. "I heard that in a certain village there is a demon that appears and kills people like flies. The villagers do not dare to go out at night. Instead, the demon eats animals alive. People must find its hiding place and kill it to end the problem. That's a possessed demon. No one in this village has just died, how could there be a possessed demon? And possessed demons are the kind that kill people when they're sleeping." But according to the boy, his father's head suddenly fell off. Or is there a spell? Nonsense. Our village is not a mountainous area, so there is no way to have wormwood. And even if there was wormwood, there would be no sorcerer to perform magic. Moreover, Mr. Luke and his son did not have any grudge against anyone to the extent that they would let someone use wormwood to kill them so brutally. Even if the family lost the lottery and was forced to pay debts, that would be the end of it. There were countless discussions and speculations about Mr. Luke's death. But most people talked more about ghosts because Mr. Luke's death was truly very strange. People took pity on Luke and buried him in the field. After Luke's funeral, only Ba was left alone. Ba had no place to stay, so he wandered around the village. He had also dropped out of school, and he had no relatives except Duan. He remembered his half-brother, so he went to Duan's house to ask to stay. When he arrived, Duan was not home. He was so hungry that he ventured into the house to find something to eat. He was unfamiliar with the house, so he just walked around randomly, and unexpectedly went into Mrs. Cam's room. There was no one in Mrs. Cam's room. He didn't know where Mrs. Cam had gone. Ba searched everywhere, from the wooden cabinet where Mrs. Cam kept her clothes, to under the bed, under the table. Then he suddenly discovered a red box with a golden happy character on it. In the countryside, there are some places where people often have a box to store the wedding gifts of a couple after their wedding, kept for many years. Perhaps this was the wedding box kept from when Mrs. Cam was young. Ba was so curious, and hungry, that he wanted to search everything, so he opened the box wide. Inside the box was a red dress, probably Mrs. Cam's old wedding dress. The strange thing was that even though the dress had been around for many years, its color was still very bright. He must have kept it very carefully. Next, something round emerged from under the red shirt. Ba lifted the red shirt and unexpectedly discovered something horrifying. He covered his mouth with his hand and ran out the door in terror. Just as he reached the edge of the door, a hand suddenly reached out from under the bed and grabbed Ba's leg, causing him to fall to the ground. Ba shouted, "Help! Help!" It was dragged into the middle of the room. The late sunset sky was fading, darkness was falling over this land, signaling the arrival of demons. Ba panicked and struggled. He looked around and saw no one, but clearly his legs were tightly grabbed by invisible hands. His whole body was dragged towards the box. He understood that if he could not escape, the result would be very similar to the things inside the red box. The darker the sky, the brighter the hurricane lamp in the room. Ba was dragged under the bed. He saw a pair of skinny legs sticking out from above the bed. Through the dim light of the hurricane lamp, the legs did not cast any shadows. People often rumored that ghosts do not cast any shadows. If you doubted who was a ghost, just look at whether that person had a shadow or not. Ba suddenly remembered what his classmates whispered to each other. People had a habit of bending their heads down to look through their crotch. At that time, if there was a ghost behind them, they would definitely recognize it. Ba trembled, spread his legs and slowly looked through. His crotch was wet and leaking liquid. He gasped when he realized that the person grabbing his legs was Mr. Kam. Mr. Kam only had a pair of hands attached to a head that looked extremely strange. Mr. Kam smiled and stared straight into Ba's eyes. Ba's mouth was twisted and he was screaming for help. At this moment, the sound of a bicycle chain rang out outside the gate. Duan had returned. He was still holding a fish in his hand. Duan looked around and saw that the gate was open today, and that Mr. Kam's room seemed to have been ransacked by someone. Duan immediately ran into Mr. Kam's room. He saw Mr. Kam sitting there, chewing betel and smiling as usual. He seemed happier than usual. Without waiting for Duan to ask, Mr. Kam spoke up. The father and son are all dead, about to die. Hearing what Mr. Kam said, Duan sighed and sat down on the bed to talk to him. Yes, sir, Luke is dead. Ba has been wandering around all day. I came home after work and couldn't find him. Poor thing, I wonder if he's had dinner yet. Ba heard Duan's voice, but he couldn't speak. His mouth was tightly held by a hand, preventing him from making any sound for help. He reached out to shake Duan's leg, but Duan's leg was at the head of the bed, and his hand was at the foot of the bed, so he couldn't reach it. He immediately thought of a way. He wrote words on the ground under the light of the hurricane lamp. Duan might not be able to see them for the time being, but he would definitely see the words on the ground at some point. When Duan had just finished his monologue with Mrs. Kam, he stood up and was about to go out. Suddenly his face showed a look of shock. On the ground were a few words, I am Ba, I am locked under the bed. Mrs. Kam is a ghost, save me. Seeing Duan standing there, Mr. Kam suddenly said. They will all die, sooner or later. If they make my grandchild suffer, they will all die. Hearing these words from Mr. Kam, Duan suddenly remembered what had happened and felt a chill down his spine. The death of Mrs. DM, the death of Mr. Luke. Both were related to Duan's resentment, and both had extremely horrible deaths. Duan did not believe what the writing mentioned, but also wanted to know if there was really someone under that bed. He distracted Mr. Kam and said, Grandma, I cook very fast. Go take a shower and then we can eat. Old Kam nodded toothlessly and walked away. As soon as Old Kam was out of sight, Duan lowered his head and saw Ba crawling out from under the bed. Ba shouted and grabbed Duan's hand. Run. Don't die now. Ba insisted on pulling Duan's hand, afraid that he would be discovered if he went through the main gate, so he dragged Duan around the path. Behind the house. Unexpectedly, he made Duan witness a terrifying scene. Old Man Kam came to the edge of the old well and suddenly jumped into the well. Duan intended to rush to save Old Man Kam, but Ba grabbed his hand and ran away. Ba said, Don't go there, she's a real ghost. Have you ever seen anyone fall down a well without making a sound? Duan still did not believe it. He pulled Ba's hand away and was about to go to the well to examine it. But just as Duan was about to do so, he was stunned to see Mr. Kam standing at the front of the house staring at him. He said, I've finished bathing. Can I eat now? Duan shivered. He saw Mr. Kam turn his face to look at Ba. He suddenly coldly pointed at Ba's face and said, You will die. Ba immediately pulled Duan's hand and ran away, his face pale to the point of losing all blood. Duan was absent-minded and let Ba pull his hand. Not knowing how long they had been running, Ba stopped and said, I guess I can't escape death. Duan asked, Why do you say that? The old lady was very close, I felt that. My neck hurt a lot. Before my father died, he also said his neck hurt, and then his head separated from his neck. Ba tearfully told Duan everything. Duan thought back, Mrs. DM's death must have been because she had mistreated Mr. Kam and tortured him. Mr. Luke's death was also because he had come to cause trouble and threatened him, causing Mr. Kam to find out. In fact, Mrs. Kam had died a long time ago without him knowing. She had died in the well behind the house. Thinking back to when Mrs. Kam started behaving strangely, it must have been the day Mrs. DM took off the red shirt from Mr. Kam. She must have died since then. Duan did not know why she died in the well behind the house. But it must have been related to Mrs. DM. Her soul died while wearing a red shirt and was angry and wronged, so she turned into a demon. Right after she died, Mrs. DM had to receive punishment from her soul. Ba cried and said, "Mrs. Kam died and turned into a ghost. If anyone causes trouble for you, she will not forgive you. Don't let anyone near your house, don't let her hear you have any conflicts with them, even the smallest ones. She is a ghost, so she won't understand those things. She will kill anyone she feels has thoughts of opposing you. Also, in her room there is a red box, in it is." Ba wiped his tears and was about to continue speaking when his expression suddenly turned fearful. Duan looked behind him and saw Mr. Kam there. He glared at Ba and pointed fiercely. "You must die." Ba wanted to run away, but when he turned around, he immediately bumped into a rock. His head was pierced by the sharp end of the rock. Ba died, his brains spilling out. Duan was so scared that he was suffocated, holding his neck and shivering at the sight of Ba's death. Duan turned his head and saw only old man Kam chewing betel nut, smiling at him. He did not understand why the old man's gentle smile that always warmed his heart, today made his heart cold. Old man Kam slowly turned his head and walked into the night. Duan was absent-minded, holding Ba's hands and feet, which were gradually getting colder. Suddenly, there was the sound of a bicycle clattering at the end of the road. Duan hurriedly carried Ba's body and hid in the bushes. If people discovered Ba's death would definitely be blamed on Duan. Holding his half-brother in his arms, Duan suddenly felt moved and tears welled up in his eyes. The cyclist who came was unexpectedly Mr. Honorable Mr. Han was passing by carrying a bag of pig feed. Seeing the red splatter everywhere on the roadside, and some white residue, he immediately said, "Oh my gosh! Who butchered buffalo and cow here and left brains and blood all over the place? I have to ask which butcher bought the tripe, it's really good to drink wine with." Mr. Han was a drunkard and had blurred vision, so he mistook the blood on the road for people killing cattle and buffalo and couldn't think deeper. While preparing to continue cycling, Mr. Han was stopped by a call. "Uncle Han. Uncle Han. Are you free? I invite you over for a drink." The person calling from afar was Kong. After hearing that, Mr. Han immediately drove towards Song to talk. He asked, "Is that work? Oh my God, call your father-in-law, tomorrow I will marry my daughter to you. We can drink together every day." The man scratched his head and ears. "Stop joking with me. Trang doesn't like me." Mr. Han opened his eyes wide. "Are you worried about Duan again? That poor guy is not worthy of my daughter. Tomorrow I will come over to his house and give him a good beating. If he dares to come near Trang again, I will stab him to death." He was very happy, but pretended not to believe. "Oh well, tomorrow when you sober up you'll forget right away," Mr. Han affirmed. "I have a pair of new gold bracelets I just bought for my mother at home. Take them as a guarantee. If I don't come over tomorrow to scold Duan, you can take them and spend them." Song then burst out laughing and took the pair of gold bracelets. Then he dragged Mr. Han to his house to eat and drink. Duan was very angry after hearing this, but suddenly remembered what Ba had said before he died. Anyone who appeared near Duan's house and had a conflict with him would be harmed by Mr. Kam. If Mr. Han really came to Duan's house tomorrow, his life would be in danger. Duan immediately thought of how to stop Mr. Han. After burying Ba, Duan went to Trang's house. He wanted to tell Trang the whole story. But when he arrived at Trang's house, he stopped and hesitated. Because what he was about to say was too absurd. Would Trang believe him or would she think he was crazy? He then turned to Tsong's house, and thought of another way. When he arrived at Tsong's house, he was drinking and chatting with Mr. Han when Duan barged in. When Tsong saw Duan coming, he immediately stood up and asked, "What are you doing here?" He still remembered Duan's punch the day before, so he was very cautious. He thought that Duan had come here to find him to cause trouble. Contrary to Song's thoughts, Duan lowered his voice, looked at Mr. Han and said, "Yes, Uncle Han, today I want to come here to tell you something. About Trang and I." Mr. Han threw the cup on the ground, breaking it, then angrily said, "A guy like you with an elephant head and a mouse tail is worthy of my daughter?" Duan tried to suppress his anger and said, "I know that too, so today I also want to inform you. I will never see Trang again. I just need you not to come to my house to bother me. I'm afraid the villagers will gossip. My relatives are old, I'm afraid they can't stand the gossip." Mr. Han nodded with satisfaction. "If you say so, then why should I make things difficult for you?" Duan said. "Thank you, uncle. I've bothered you with a drink." Duan turned around and walked away. Mr. Han patted Song on the shoulder and said, "So tomorrow I won't have to go to his house to curse anymore. Give me back the gold bracelets." Mr. Han held out his hand to ask for it, still praising. "That guy is as stupid as a cow, but he knows how to be smart." Song's eyes kept rolling. He hated Duan for stealing Trang's feelings, stealing Trang from him. Who would want things to end so easily? He had to humiliate Duan to feel satisfied. If necessary, he would let Mr. Kam hear this news, in case he suddenly fell down and died. Duan would have to accept a bitter ending. Song thought about taking revenge on Duan so happily that he did not respond to Mr. Han's request to get back the gold bracelets. He said, "No, you promised, you promised. How can you go back on your word? Today, if she sweet-talks you, you let her go. Tomorrow, if she flatters you a little more, you'll marry Trang to her. But who knows, what she said might be true. What if she cheats on you and secretly meets Trang again, and the rice becomes rice? At that time, who can I go to make her pay? You should go to her house and scold her until she's ashamed. Then she won't dare to meet your daughter again. That way, you'll be sure." Mr. Han was impressed, thinking that Song's words were correct. The next day, he and Song went to Duan's house early in the morning. Mr. Han rushed into Duan's house and started to nag about Duan's secret meeting with his daughter, then cursed. Song laughed heartily. Unexpectedly, before Mr. Han finished cursing, a strong wind blew up from somewhere. The sky, which was in the middle of the day, turned dark. Mr. Kam sat perched on a longan tree, looking down and giggling. Song was so scared that his face turned pale because he saw Mr. Kam so strangely. He quickly pulled Mr. Han's hand and wanted to leave Duan's house. Unexpectedly, Mr. Han had not taken 2 steps when he tripped over a rock, hit his head on the brick floor, and died. Song just closed his eyes and ran away, and when he saw Mr. Han fall to his death, he did not dare to turn back. Duan witnessed the whole thing from beginning to end, but he did not have time to stop Mr. Han because he died too quickly. He had just run out of the house when he witnessed Mr. Han's death in his yard and Song's frightened face. The man was so panicked that he went crazy. He staggered across the field. He kept muttering, "Ghost, ghost, ghost," in broad daylight. He ran to Trang's house to inform her and Mrs. Nan about Mr. Han's death. He met Trang drying rice. He grabbed her hand and said, "Trang, my dad is dead." Trang slapped Song and angrily shouted, "Stop it, your joke is too much." Song often joked, so Trang did not believe what he said. But Song swore with tears in his eyes. "I swear, I went to Duan's house with the old man. He's dead." Song's attitude seemed to be real. Trang suddenly felt like the sky was falling. She staggered and almost fell to the ground. She asked, "Why? Why did my father die?" Song was about to tell the whole story when a wicked thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He thought of something that could help him get Trang and end Duan. He said, "Your father was angry about you meeting Duan, so he called me over today to advise Duan." Unexpectedly, Duan was so rude, he cursed your father until his face turned purple with anger. I had to stop him from shouting, then advised Duan. But unexpectedly, he did not let go. he continued to nag. The old man could not bear it, he could not walk steadily, slipped and fell into a rock and died. It was all Duan's fault. Trang heard and slapped Song again. It must be you, you dragged my father to see Mr. Duan. You beast. In human form. After Trang finished speaking, she pushed Song to the ground and ran straight to Duan's house. Along the way, her tears fell down. In this life, the thing she did not want the most was for the two people she loved to have problems with each other. When she arrived, she saw with her own eyes that Mr. Han had died. Duan was holding his body, lying on the ground. Trang rushed to hug Mr. Han's body and shouted, "Dad, why did you die like this?" Duan trembled as he pulled Trang's hand and tried to explain. "Your dad fell, I wanted to stop him but it was too late." Unexpectedly, before Duan could finish explaining, Trang pushed Duan's hand away, looked at him with hatred and said, "I hate you. I will never forgive you." Trang hugged Mr. Han's body and struggled to drag him back. Duan rushed out to help her, but as soon as he touched Mr. Han's body, Trang slapped him and pointed at his face and said, "Get your filthy hands off my father. You beast." After saying that, Trang continued to drag Mr. Han's body to bring him home. Duan stood there like a ghost. He did not expect things to develop to this extent. His death came too quickly. Duan thought everything had been resolved, but Mr. Han still did not listen to him. And still came here to cause trouble with him. Duan did not know that Song had instigated Mr. Han and made things this bad. Everything for Trang was over. Mr. Han's funeral was held right after that. Song was very considerate and took care of Mr. Han's funeral like a family member. Trang felt that she was wrong in treating Song when he informed her of her father's death. She always felt guilty towards him. After the funeral, she looked at Song with different eyes. When she saw how well Song took care of Mr. Han's funeral, she thought that what she had thought about Song before must have been wrong. Song was not that bad. A few days after Mr. Han's death, Trang had no appetite and was always sad. Only Song often visited to ask after her and was very attentive. One day Song came to see Trang and gave her a pair of gold bracelets. Song said, "Before he died, your father left me these gold bracelets as a token. He said that his only wish in this life was for me to marry you. If he hadn't fulfilled that wish, he would have left the gold bracelets with me as a token. Now that he's passed away, I only kept them because I respected him in the past. Now I'm returning them to you. I'm about to leave here." Song's words suddenly made Trang feel scared. She felt that Song's departure would cause her to lose something huge. Remembering Mr. Han's wish when he was still alive, she covered her face and cried. Seeing that his plan had succeeded, Trang was moved. He immediately pretended to put the hill of gold rings on the table and turned away. He tried to walk very slowly to wait and see if Trang would fall for his trick. As expected, Trang could not escape Song's trick. When Song's foot had just stepped out of the door, a soft hand grabbed his hand. Trang's soft and weak voice rang out, "Marry me." And so Song and Trang's wedding was set. After all the tricks, Song had completely taken over Trang both physically and mentally. The news of Song and Trang's wedding spread throughout the village. Duan fell ill upon hearing the news. Old Kem sat on the edge of the bed, his eyes absent-minded. He asked, "Do you like it very much?" Duan's eyes filled with tears, he turned his face to the wall and nodded silently. Duan was in so much pain that he could not speak. Not physical pain, but pain in his heart. The feeling of a long, cold night, without Trang, Duan's life seemed to gradually lose its vitality. The day Trang got married to Kong. In the bridal chamber, Trang was alone, sitting quietly in front of the mirror. She recalled the memories with Duan on this important day. Perhaps she could not forget Duan because she considered him her first love. Until now, she was still uncertain whether her feelings were right or wrong. But the image of Mr. Han's death flashed by, making Trang clench her fist and no longer regret. Just as Trang was about to step out of the wedding hall, Duan appeared behind her. Trang was startled to see Duan. Duan was wearing a groom's outfit similar to what Sung was wearing. Trang asked in surprise. Why are you here? Duan was silent, his smile was lifeless, his face was extremely sad. Then he explained everything and the origin of all the misunderstandings to Trang. Trang was startled and understood everything, and even Sung's trick was quickly discovered by her. She felt disgusted and scared when she knew that her life was about to fall into the hands of a cruel and ruthless person like Kong. But before she could get out of her thoughts, Duan stood at the door and said, I will wait for you in the next life. Tonight is the day you get married, and also the day I die. If you still love me, then come to my house tonight. After saying that, Duan blended into the crowd and disappeared. Trang was scared and ran after Duan, calling out, Mr. Duan. But Duan was not there. Trang did not know that, from the crowd, the tall Duan suddenly transformed into the face of a wrinkled old woman. It turned out that it was not Duan, but the evil spirit of Mr. Kam transformed too. Trick her into coming to that house. Meanwhile, Sung personally went to Duan's house. He was wearing his wedding clothes. Sung heard that Duan was sick because of a broken heart. He wanted to give Duan a blow, maybe it would make Duan go crazy from then on. He sat near the edge of the bed, curled his lips, and shoved a wedding invitation into Duan's hand, saying, Today is the day I marry Trang, it won't be fun without you. Remember to come and drink to celebrate. He laughed heartily and left, leaving Duan with the utmost resentment. Duan must have been in so much pain that he wanted to die. Duan tried to get up, and revived after Sung's provocation. He did not want to surrender. At least he could see Trang happy on her wedding day. Duan took his bicycle and cycled around to the back village road. He wanted to attend Trang's wedding quietly, so he did not take the main road. Who would have thought that Duan's decision would cause the separation of the living and the dead? Trang ran from the main road of the village to Duan's house, two people on different roads but with the same wish. When they arrived, Trang did not see Duan anywhere, only saw the house open and in ruins. She saw Mr. Kam sitting in the room. She immediately ran to hold his hand and asked, Grandma, where is Duan? Please let me see him, if I don't see him I will die. Mr. Kam looked at Trang, smiled and said affectionately, Follow me. Old man Kam waved at Trang to follow him. Trang followed and saw him leading her to the back garden. Old man Kam pointed at the well and said, It's cleaning the bottom of the well. The bottom of the well hasn't been used for a long time, so it has to be cleaned of fallen trash. Call it. Armed with her heart, she clouded her reason. She thought it was real and stuck her head through the well. Old man Kam's eyes turned cold, his eyes gradually became vicious. He muttered, My good grandson, I will give you a forever young and beautiful bride. A devil bride. Duan cycled halfway, suddenly remembering that he should have a gift for Trang on her wedding day. He turned his bike around and headed back home. The back village road looked out into the back garden, and the well was clearly visible. Just then Duan saw Trang hovering at the mouth of the well. Old man Kam was slowly approaching her. Duan was scared and threw his bike aside and ran towards her. He shouted, Trang, don't run away. Trang heard Duan's voice, she turned around and saw Mr. Kam's pale face. He had revealed his true form as a demon. Trang's mouth was wide open, her heart almost stopped beating. Her whole body fell headlong into the well. Duan rushed forward and grabbed Trang's leg. The well mouth was slippery with green moss, causing him to fall down with Trang. The sky thundered and lightning exploded, the calm surface of the well returned to silence. The love between the man and the woman had sent them to the underworld, life and death together, fate could only be in the other world. Duan and Trang had died, the two of them might not have a happy ending together. But they could die for each other, and die together. Just like the oath of a couple who were separated by fate for many generations, never to be fulfilled, but they could do it. It was a cruel fate, but also a gift. The wedding lost the bride. Sung was so excited that he went to look for her. The news was like a thunderbolt, people discovered Trang and Duan's bodies in the well. Unexpectedly, they also discovered the body of Mr. Kam, which had decomposed for a long time. It was also because of Trang's disappearance that Mr. Kam's death was discovered. The villagers were shocked when they realized that they still saw Mr. Kam every night. It turned out that he was just a ghost. Song also went crazy when he heard Trang died. He was as dumb as a lost soul. So this was his punishment, becoming a madman who no longer knew the world. From then on, people saw Song wandering from village to village, digging through trash to eat leftovers like an animal. Some people felt sorry for him and occasionally gave him food. But Song lived a miserable life. Then came the day when people discovered that Song had died on the street, without anyone to bury him. Out of pity, people covered him with a thin mat, sending Song to the underworld, becoming a ghost who died on the street and was not worshipped. As for the house where Mr. Kam and the two people Duan and Trang lived, rumors began to spread that it was a place where ghosts and demons lived. Anyone who went near that house would be in trouble, or even kidnapped in the middle of the night. Some people passed by there at night, and the next day they were found dead in the well. Others passed by without any problems, saying that there was a man and a woman guiding them and protecting them. Therefore, there is a rhyme that says, "God, please let me meet a boy or girl to escape the coffin life. Don't meet the evil old red devil. Then down the deep well and become a lonely soul."